Next, we have Treasurer Collector. Georgia, thank you for coming.
I'll make it as quick as possible, and if you want to save your questions till the end, or if you're pressed for time, you can always email me.
Okay, thank you.
We'll start with the first budget. I have 7 budgets tonight. I'll go as quickly as possible. I know you're pressed for time. 7 budgets tonight: Treasurer Collector, Medicare, Retirement, Regional Vocational Technical School, Town Debt Principal, Town Debt Interest, and Unemployment. The first budget is the Treasurer Collector's budget. The salary line item will remain level funded at $93,671. And that is what I am requesting for fiscal year 16. The operational budget for fiscal year 2015 was $71,500. I am requesting a 2% increase for a fiscal year 2016 amount of $73,250. It's mostly in the postage and the printing line, and a slight increase in our payroll outside contractor. I won't go into the details, seeing how you guys are pressed for time right now.
Incidentally, you may wonder why some of the salary lines don't go up for the 54th week. If someone's paid at an annual salary, that remains the same amount. It's only for the hourly employees that there is a 27th week payroll. So for an annual employee, you would divide their annual salary by 27 rather than have an extra 2 weeks payroll.
Okay, the next budget is the interest budget. The fiscal year 2015 appropriation was $1,245,427. For fiscal year 2016, I'm requesting $1,317,657. There are 2 future borrowings slated for the end of fiscal year 2015. The first one is the public safety building, and the second one is the solar panels at the wastewater treatment plant, I believe. Those will be borrowed in May of 2005. The principal and interest will be raised on the recap and added to the levy for fiscal year 15. So that will be calculated in the tax rate that'll hit calendar year 16 taxes. Next budget is the principal budget. That goes hand in hand with the interest. Fiscal year 15 appropriation was $4,371,515. The request for fiscal year 16 is $4,738,616, similar to what I just mentioned with the interest. The principal for those 2 new borrowings will be added to this budget. Again, these numbers are on the town debt schedule that I have. I can email you guys a copy. So that's the principal.
So the principal's actually down without those projects?
That is correct. And just a quick number for you guys. At the end of June, on June 30th of 2015, our outstanding principal and interest, which will not include your public safety building or your solar panels, you're at $52 million.
Georgia, that doesn't include the state hospital land acquisition either, I assume?
That is correct.
Okay, because that's reflected as a increase in your cherry sheet assessments.
Okay, the next budget is Medicare. Medicare contributions are made on behalf of the town of Medfield. They depend upon the salaries of all of our employees who have been hired by the town of Medfield after 1986. Each employed hire after 1986 is mandated to contribute 1.45% of their gross salary. And the town of Medfield is obligated to match those contributions. In fiscal year 14, the actual Medicare expense was $392,000, and in 15, we are budgeted at $412,000. Obviously, with newer people coming in, this line item goes up. Historical data has shown that a 5% increase is healthy to cover any future general salary increases, steps, and merits. We always review this expenditure account in May before the school lump sum payroll goes out. So I am requesting a 5% increase of $20,000 for a fiscal year 16 requested appropriation of $432,000. The next budget is county retirement. I don't have a lot of information on this. They are having a meeting in a couple of weeks for all of the local treasurer collectors. I only have a figure right now. Per Norfolk County Retirement, our liability for the upcoming fiscal year 2016 is $1,927,321. It represents a 12% increase over last year's appropriated amount of $1,007,000. The difference is $206,000. There are many factors involved in the assessment calculation: new participants with past services in other units, retirees are living longer, investment income, pay increases. As for fiscal year 2016, I am requesting an assessment appropriation for $1,927,321. The Retirement Board once again is offering us a 2% discount if I can pay it before June 30th. So we scrounge up the money on June 30th and send out $1,009,000 less $37,000. So we appropriate the full amount, we pay it less the 2%, we take the savings of $37,000, and we've been transferring that into our OPEB stabilization retirement trust fund, which is growing. We made a $400,000 appropriation deposit to that account in last fiscal year. Our stabilization account as of December 31st is at $1,001,000, which is pretty damn good. Some communities aren't even paying attention to putting money aside for this. Just as a quick footnote, we are in the process of selecting an actuary. We have to go through an updated actuarial valuation every 2 years. We will be doing one as of January 2015, which will result in a new actuarial accrued liability.
And these are the proposals we received right here. There's 6 of them we received.
Okay, the next budget is the unemployment budget. I am level funding this budget. Fiscal year 15 and 16 are $30,000. The current balance, what happens is we appropriate money in this budget. I take that money and I invest it in my trust funds and earn probably 3 to 4%, just pooled with all of our other trust funds for the town of Medfield. The current balance in the trust fund where the actual unemployment expenditure is paid from, as of December 31st, the balance was $187,000. We're currently running between $5,000 and $6,000 a month. All employees that are paid in the unemployment bill are school employees, and that does get figured in the end of the year report that is prepared on behalf of the school department.
Georgia, I'm fascinated that you're making 3 to 4%, because that's a lot better than I thought you'd be making.
Well, we've got some really good treasury bonds that are probably going to mature right when I retire.
Oh,
We've got some good treasury bonds that are like between 12 and 15%.
excellent.
But we're going to be losing those. But you know, when you pool your investments together, we have a wonderful financial advisor, and we're doing well.
Gee, Georgia, I didn't know you went out on 30-year treasury bonds.
It wasn't me, it was before me.
No, I mean, you're not going to retire for 30
Oh.
years. So they mature when she leaves.
The final budget is the Regional Vocational Technical School. Currently, I'm level funding it. I've made a couple of phone calls, haven't received anything back yet regarding our assessment for fiscal year 16. So for now, my request is to level fund it at $159,201. I have no other information. The warrant committee and the town accountant will be notified once I receive an updated figure based on enrollment.
Georgia, why are you in charge of the Regional Vocational Technical School?
I don't know, probably because I just pay the bill every month.
Yeah, they send her the bill.
Yeah, I get a
So,
bill every
yeah.
month.
Is this for
Whoever wants money comes and
and the
finds
school-
me.
the schools-
Tri-county or tri-
Tri-county,
This
yeah.
is the Tri-County School in Franklin. Yes, we pay a monthly assessment.
The schools don't want to assume responsibility for it because they feel it's not under their control, so.
Not
It-
under our
it
control
also-
either, really.
Yeah, well, on that particular point, somehow legislation got put through a few years ago allowing the, in our case, it's the agricultural school, to make an additional assessment over and above what we pay through our county assessment. And they keep sending the superintendent and myself bills for, I think, start out at 2,000, now it's down to about 1,800 per student that they want us to pay for over and above what we pay as a direct payment to them for each student from Medfield. And I know when Bob McGuire was here, he refused to pay it, and I believe the current superintendent's refusing to pay it. And when I get the bills, I just send it upstairs. So I think it's something we probably need to talk to our representatives when they come here and find out why these principals are allowed to send additional assessment directly to the towns without any oversight or, yeah.
If you have any questions, call me or email me, all right?
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks.
Georgia, I have a quick question while you're here. I told the selectmen that we had a discussion this morning about the solar photovoltaic project. If it's going to go forward, and it looks like the return is very good on that, so we probably will be recommending that we go forward with it. But your feeling is that if we're going to save money by combining it with the borrowing on the public safety building, we ought to put it on the warrant for the special town
It's gonna
meeting?
make a lot more sense to put them on, to put it on the warrant for the special town meeting. One, it'll be treated as one package by our legal counsel, our bond legal counsel, not the town's legal counsel. And secondly, if we leave it until April, because it's a solar panel, it's not really just a straight borrowing. There's a lot of, it's not an article that they're accustomed to. When it goes through legal counsel, it may get caught up, and I don't like to borrow in June, only because we like to leave June open for communities who need to get money in before the end of the fiscal year so that they don't borrow against their free cash. So I like to do my borrowings, by the middle to the beginning of May. That's not going to leave us with a lot of time to get done what we need to get done. A good borrowing takes 2 to 3 weeks, but as you know, when you sign all those documents. So I think it's in the best interest of the town to include that article in the special town meeting in March, along with the public safety meeting. That way, both borrowings will have the same reference to the same town meeting. It will make it easier, I think, in the long run.
Thanks for looking out for us that
And
way.
hopefully, we can get a good interest rate.
Yeah, good,
Great, thank you.
thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Georgia.
Our 7:40 appointment at 8:10 is the Town Bylaw and Charter Review Committee. Discuss committee's proposed 2015 warrant articles.
Hi, I'm Lisa Franco. I'm the chairperson of the Bylaw Review Committee. Last year, we passed the codification, and really that was just a reworking and codifying of what we had. It didn't make a lot of substantive changes. So when we were going through the bylaw for the codification purpose, we notated a number of articles that really needed to be reworked or revised or what have you, and we did not meet a lot this fall. We began meeting more towards the end of the fall, beginning of the winter, and so we were proposing two one is actually a new article, and one is an amendment to an existing article. The new article it would be chapter 115, and it would be called cemetery areas. And basically, it's just like the park and recreation article that's in the current bylaw now. It gives, and I have copies that I did bring a couple copies. I didn't email them. I didn't. It basically allows the Cemetery Commission to promulgate written rules and regulations for conduct on cemetery land. Just like the Park and Rec Commission can promulgate written rules and regulations on Park and Rec land. And then, again, there are violations and penalties which mirror Park and Rec penalties. And we just think this is a good idea because it would allow for some, I know there have been certain complaints up there about certain behaviors or conducts, and it would give them the opportunity to to make some rules and regulations. Do you have any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. The second proposed amendment is an amendment to Chapter 140 to the noise bylaw. And basically what we are doing is we're proposing a new section which would prohibit certain noise between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. And these is commercial noise. It's not noise that residents are making in their usual activities, maintaining their properties and things of that nature. We're talking about construction, idling of trucks, commercial wood chippers, power equipment. So we are just proposing a section of a new section, Article 4, that would limit these noises to 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning. And they're pretty well detailed in the article itself. And then what we did was we struck some sections initially only to the enforcement and penalties. We're making that one article that will apply to everything in this Chapter 180 instead of having each separate section have a separate penalties and violations. There's going to be just one section that will apply to the whole article. So it's really an addition of the prohibited noise and then a consolidation of the enforcement and penalties.
Do you have that general listed as construction equipment, things like that, or do you specifically
Oh.
list things?
I have extras of those too, sorry. In several different sections, A, B, C, and D. And by the way, Jeff McNicholas is here as well from the committee, if you have any other questions that I can't answer. But it does not apply to, obviously, snow removal, because, you know, people do need to get up and, or there does need to be snow removal at all hours of the day for public safety reasons. So we specifically said that this bylaw will not apply to that. Basically,
Your section A2 there basically protects the homeowner by saying individual property owners performing regular maintenance on their property, so.
that's right. We looked at a number of articles from other towns, and we cut and paste a little bit, and then we had a large discussion about what we thought would be good here. But we did detail a number of the commercial and activities that would be prohibited. Any questions?
Good.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you for what you guys are doing. Thanks for coming in. 8 o'clock, we're meeting with the Planning Board and Council on Aging at our newly scheduled 8:15 appointment.
Do you want to just go right into the housing production plan, or is that,
Well, I think, I don't know, Tony Santori was here for
oh, for,
discussion. Are you ready to go with that, Tony, or you waiting for anyone else?
We hear the housing production plan first.
Oh, okay, fine, sure.
So we're kind of flipping
Pardon?
things here, and what we're doing
Big
is our
I assume you didn't hit big because you came
Berta
back?
Cameron Communities
I assume you
Opportunity
didn't hit
Group
big 'cause you came back.
discussion regarding the housing plan, which is the housing production plan, Medfield's housing production plan, which is how we get to our 10% affordable housing.
I've never seen a PowerPoint work on the first time anyway, so.
You know,
So while we're waiting for that, let me ask about the draft that Christine circulated to us last week. Says right on the top of it, draft. What are we going to do to get to a final plan?
We need to make some edits, obviously. We'll get feedback from you this evening, and
Are you meeting with other groups then as well, or?
we did our best to talk to stakeholders in the process of
Okay.
preparing this in 2013. And so, short of typographical edits, this is substantially completed.
Okay, great. Can I ask you a question about the
Sure.
the draft that got circulated?
Yes.
There was a meeting last week of the Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee.
Yes.
And they had a fellow come from the Smart Growth Alliance or something like that. Smartgrowth.org, I think, was his website, the group that he was with. And what I took away from his discussion was that we have a lot of housing in Medfield that's the wrong type of housing for the people that are they're going to have the growth, which he said were the Gen Y, Gen Y,
Gen
which
Y,
is
Gen X.
the 80
Yeah.
to 2000 people, I think.
Yes.
And the baby boomers, and that he said that most of their housing demands and for the future are going to be for single households. So that it was, but it struck me when I was reading the housing production plan that basically we have all these single-family homes, 90% or something, and it didn't strike me that what he was saying seemed to jive with what was in your housing production plan, so.
That is definitely, I have not been making projections in the housing production plan. I'm talking about the current population and the current needs, but that is definitely something that is borne out in the data that we have.
That the need is
Yeah,
for those
yeah.
single household,
The
Young
need
and
is for
old.
something different from what you've got.
oh yeah, absolutely,
So that's, that is what I am going to be sharing data to show you,
okay.
that
I guess what struck
distinction.
me was the difference between, he was saying that most of these were single households, and what I saw here was that it's all families.
Yes.
It's all two people and more households in Medfield.
Mostly that's what you've got, but that's also because of the housing stock that you have.
Right, so if I'm a single-person household,
Yeah.
I'd move out of Medfield, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
or you wouldn't
And
move
fi-
into Medfield. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me come and speak to you about the housing production plan. As I mentioned, it was prepared in 2013, so some of the data may be a little bit out of date, but it is all still very current issues, as you'll see. I wanted to begin by explaining what is the housing production plan. It is, first of all, a path for compliance with Chapter 40B. You've seen the pressure of Chapter 40B development in the community. How can you control the land use decisions in your community? This plan will give you a path of steps that you can take to regain control of building affordable housing in the community. The plan actually offers protection from unfriendly 40Bs if you actually implement zoning or other initiatives that create affordable housing. Without taking those implementation steps, you're going in the right direction, but you haven't shown the level of commitment that the state wants to see in order to actually offer you protection. But the housing production plan is doing more than just helping you comply with Chapter 40B. We're trying to help you identify what are your housing needs in the town of Medfield right now. And this is based on demographic and market conditions, as we've just been talking about, and considering what are the issues that are confronting your neighborhoods and your residents. I'm Roberta Cameron, and I work with Community Opportunities Group. We've been working with the town of Medfield for some time in the permitting process for the park development, and after that project was in the pipeline already, the town of Medfield asked us to prepare a housing production plan, which would help the town to have more control over the process of 40B proposals going forward. Back to the housing market context in Medfield. You can't see the slide very well from where it is, but about 83% of the homes in Medfield are detached single-family homes. You've got about 11% multifamily housing units and about 5% of attached single-family or duplex or two-family or other types of housing like that. The sales prices is a little bit out of date, but we're showing that sales prices peaked in 2006, over $600,000 a year, and went down a little bit by 2011. 2013, your average assessed valuation was $553,000, and the average tax bill was just under $9,000. In other communities that we're working in, we're seeing that sales prices are going back up, reaching the peak levels again where they were in 2006. And you've constructed an average of 20 new units per year over the past decade. And between 2002 2011, those were all single-family units, no multifamily units. On the other side, so that's the supply side, on the demand side, Medfield, who lives in Medfield? This tells a really interesting story. Again, if you could see the data on the slide, and I apologize, the handout that I gave you is also too small to read, so I would love to share this with you electronically if you're interested. The town, you have got a tremendous number of families with children. You know that, but the data shows that. It's the largest population, comparing Medfield with other communities in the region, including Dover, Sherborne, Millis, Norfolk, and Walpole, Medfield shows the most similarity with the town of Norfolk, but you also are up with Dover and Sherborne as affluent communities in the region. But Medfield stands out in terms of having the highest proportion of school-age children in the region. You stand out for having the highest number of householders age 45 to 55 in the region. So those are the school children's parents. You've got the highest proportion of parents in the region. And you've got other families. You've got non-married families, that is, other kind of family arrangements besides having a husband and wife. Half of those non-married, there are about 400 non-married families in the town, and about half of them have school-age children. There are almost 700 people living alone in the town, and you've got about 850 households with seniors. And the households with the population over 55 is on the low side among your neighboring communities. You've got fewer households have elderly members, and fewer households are headed by elderly people. Looking at household incomes really continues to bear out the story of who's living in the community. Married families with children are at the top of the pyramid of household incomes, with a median income of $170,000 per year for families with children. All households earn a median of $126,000 per year, and about 70% of your households are families. That is, the other 30% are non-families, most of whom are individuals living alone. Family median income is $145,000 a year, and non-families, that's mostly people living alone, their median income is $40,000 a year. So there is a huge disparity between the types of households living the level of income and the types of households living in the community. And households with seniors, many of whom are those individuals living alone, have a median income of $48,000 a year. The other item to look at is home ownership, because home ownership is closely connected with household income. 100% of married couples with children own their own homes in Medfield. The rate of home ownership overall is about 90%. So about 10% of the homes in Medfield are are occupied by renters. That's about 340 homes are occupied by renters. Most of those are occupied by non-families, that is, people living alone. And a lot of them are occupied by senior-headed households. On the topic of housing affordability for Medfield residents, this isn't talking about a regional need for affordable housing, but how does housing affordability impact Medfield residents? The low-income homeowners who are the most burdened with housing cost are the seniors. And at income levels below 80% of the area median income, there's about 20 to 80%, depending on the income level, for homeowner households with incomes at less than $35,000 a year, 35 to 50,000, 50 to 75,000, or more than 75,000. About 60% of those households with incomes 50,000 to 75,000 are cost burdened. That means that they're paying more than 30% of their income on housing. Yes?
Could you explain that first line, low-income homeowners, typically seniors, most burdened with high housing costs? Could you
Those
explain?
households in town who have low incomes, most of them are paying more than 30% of their income on housing. Of renters, low-income renters, their rate of cost burden is not as high, but that is perhaps because they're living in housing that's subsidized already. So they're more likely to be paying rents that are commensurate with their income.
Not so much that they have a high cost of housing, they have a low income.
They have a low income, and the cost of housing is unavoidably
Costs are
high.
gonna be burdensome.
Yeah.
And gasoline's gonna be burdensome.
So housing needs versus Chapter 40B gap. This is really what what the plan is aiming to address. In terms of Medfield residents, you need more diverse housing options. What we're seeing in Medfield is that it's not a town where people can come and settle down for the long haul. People are arriving in Medfield after they've already started their families, and they're leaving after their children have grown, and they can no longer afford to keep up their house here. By and large, that's the trend that we're seeing. So you need more diverse housing options that allow people to settle for the long term and stay rooted in the community at different stages of their life. Seniors, young adults, people who live alone, empty nesters are all people who are not necessarily served by expensive single-family homes. The town needs more apartments, both small and large apartments, to serve these types of households, and less expensive homes, condos for downsizing or for people who are starting out. We hear from realtors that there's a huge demand for those types of homes in those price ranges, and there aren't homes on the market.
I think the thing that fits with that saying I've heard a lot from people is in Medfield, you educate and evacuate.
And for some reason, it's happening more in Medfield than neighboring communities, even other affluent communities.
Would it be fair to say that if you had seniors who've been in town many years, who have houses that are maybe 30, 40 years old, and were able to move into a different housing situation and sell their homes to young families, not for 600, 700,000, but maybe 400,000 or 500,000, that would make the town more attractive to young families.
Unfortunately, people typically feel as though they need to sell their home for what the market will take because they have to buy a home for what the market is going to offer. And that's their asset.
You're seeing
Yeah.
downsizing.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is there's a big stock of housing
Yeah.
owned by seniors who probably would love to downsize, but there's no options in Medfield.
Yeah.
So they're sitting on the property, when you really like them to get them to move out and have young families move in.
Exactly.
Maybe not good for the schools, but at least for the diversity and everything else you're tracking, it would help.
If you could spread out the age range of your population more by allowing people to stay in the community for longer periods of their life, then I think that would help to balance the cost of services to everyone in the population. On the Chapter 40B side, the objective is to help the town reach 10% of its housing units qualifying for the state's subsidized housing inventory. Right now, you are at 6.7% with 5 developments that altogether have 286 affordable units. And to reach the 10% goal, you need 422 units overall, so you're 136 units short. And this bar will rise in 2020. So you keep building market rate units without building affordable housing. In 2020, when the new decennial census comes out, the bar that you need to reach is going to
Are the
go
90-plus
higher.
units at Gatehouse included in your figures?
Gatehouse or Park?
Gatehouse on West Street.
It's part,
That's
yeah.
part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yes, they are.
In Medfield, what is the low income limit? How much income
You know,
is
I
low
intended to talk about that. It was on the first slide, and I was distracted by the tiny print, and I didn't didn't mention it. At the bottom of the first slide is a table that discusses what those income limits are for this region, and this is for FY 2013. The median income was $94,000 a year. So for the affordable housing units need to be priced at a level that households earning 80% of that can afford. So, and the affordable price varies by the size of the housing unit, and that's the size of the household that's going to occupy it. So for a household of 4, 80% of area median income was $67,000, and 50% of the area median income for a household of 4 was $47,000. And for a household of 2, if you're aiming for smaller housing units, smaller households, the 80% level is $54,000, and the 50% level is $38,000.
Are there asset limitations?
There are, but that's more detail than I can get into, but that information could be easily found and provided.
And Roberta,
Yes.
what's the significance of the 80 and 50%?
So there are different levels of affordability that may be targeted in specific programs. You can to qualify for the subsidized housing inventory, 20% of the homes in I won't say 20%. Housing units themselves need to be subsidized at the 80% level at least. But you may decide that the population who you most want to provide housing for would be the lower income households at 50%, and so you can ask a developer to subsidize at that level.
So a development like the park, is that targeting the 80%?
Lower.
That's
50%.
It's a
that's
50.
50%, I believe. It's 100% low income, so.
Yes.
But it's people that have these incomes that are at the 50% level?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So recommendations. The first set of recommendations fall under the heading of developing local capacity so that you can plan for and advocate for and develop and manage affordable housing units. So the steps for developing your local capacity are, first of all, to increase your technical capacity on your boards and commissions and staff in the town who look at and manage affordable housing. Secondly is to educate and communicate with the public, ask the public to be partners in helping to identify what are the needs and what are the criteria that define the type of housing that you'd like to see. And thirdly, establishing an affordable housing trust. The Affordable Housing Trust is a way of channeling money toward investing in affordable housing of your choice in the community. And there are a couple of ways that we'll talk about of funding the Affordable Housing Trust. The first of them is adopting CPA, which is a really important recommendation that I'm going to talk some more about momentarily. And finally, before I get to that, exploring potential partnerships with nonprofit developers or developers in general who you can work with to create affordable housing where you want it and the kind of affordable housing that you're looking for. CPA is such an important step for the town of Medfield right now because everything that you can do with CPA is applicable to Medfield State Hospital site.
Berta, can you just in
Yes.
case everybody knows what
I'm
CPA
sorry, the
is?
CPA is the Community Preservation Act. That is, it allows you to raise money through your local property taxes that will be channeled toward affordable housing, historic preservation, open space, and recreation objectives. And this is money that you raise locally that's matched partially by the state that you can use for projects of your own choice. And 10 to 80% of the funding can be used for any one of those project areas, including affordable housing. But since all of those project areas are applicable to the Medfield State Hospital site, it's a particularly important tool for you to be able to use for helping to guide and channel and facilitate whatever investment you're going to make in the state hospital site. Through CPA funding, you can combine all of these objectives, as I mentioned, into any single project. You're allowed to bond for large projects against future CPA revenues. And there's some administration budget. 5% administrative budget can pay for staff or consultants. And it can be used also to support moderate income housing, which may be a need in your community for households earning up to 100% area median income. That's that $94,000 level, which would not be added to your subsidized housing inventory, but it meets your local needs. And I provided two examples of CPA projects in the region. The upper one is 89 Oxbow in Wayland, where the town of Wayland bought a surplus property from the federal government, on which they developed this, I forget how many units are on this affordable housing development that has both 80% and 100% affordable units. And they preserved a large area of this property as open space with improved trails and recreation. And it's a beautiful development. The town was able to leverage their funding to work with the developer and be a partner and really specify what they were looking for in this housing development. And the second example that I give you is very applicable to what you're working with right now with the state hospital site. This is the Ames Shovel Works in Easton, a very historic former industrial site that had been vacant for many years, and this opportunity came to develop it as affordable housing with Beacon Properties, who I think also it has a property in Medfield. And the town of Easton took that bond against future CPA revenues to help leverage this very, very difficult project and make it work. So that's my sales pitch for Community Preservation Act. The next recommendation is for you to identify sites for creation of affordable housing through new development, redevelopment, or preservation. Now, the housing production plans, the Department of Housing and Community Development at the state, DHCD, prefers that housing production plans be much more specific about the location and quantity of affordable housing that's being proposed than what we've shown in this plan. I don't think that Medfield has identified themselves what are all of the sites where you might accommodate affordable housing. Because the Medfield State Hospital site can very likely accommodate most, if not all, of your affordable housing needs to satisfy Chapter 40B, I think that you can afford to spend some time thinking about what are the optimal places and ways that you'd like to develop affordable housing or more diverse housing throughout the community. Other options are other town-owned properties or privately owned properties. And in tiny print on the presentation, I have some strategies for scattered site affordable housing throughout the community, and not only affordable housing, but also more diverse housing, to convert existing homes to affordable home ownership units through town funding. That would be if you are able to fund an affordable housing trust through small-scale friendly 40B projects, which are known as local initiative projects, or LIP, or infill development or multifamily conversions in areas that can accommodate more housing development. Thinking of small-scale housing development that can be combined with historic preservation or open space protection, as the example that we saw with the Oxbow development in Wayland. And I provided some illustrations of what small-scale affordable housing development or more diverse housing development could look like in Medfield, with Allendale development that exists, as well as the conversion of historic homes, or any large homes for that matter, into multiple condominium units. Some zoning strategies are the next up. They follow from the scattered site approach. Update zoning to create opportunities for development of affordable housing and to encourage diversity in housing options. First of all, zoning for the Medfield State Hospital site. If you're going to have housing on that site, the state has offered some zoning tools that are incentives to encourage communities to develop or facilitate development of affordable housing if you utilize as-of-right mixed-income housing districts such as Chapter 40R, which I'll explain, or compact neighborhoods. You will be able to gain immediately some more control over 40B development. Compact neighborhood requires 8 units per acre for multifamily, which is comparable to Tilden Village now, or 4 units per acre for single family, which is comparable to Allendale. At least 10% of the units in projects with more than 12 units have to be affordable. And the entire zoning district cannot be age restricted, although there can be age restricted projects within it. And the zoning district needs to create at least 1% equivalent to what your current housing inventory is in the community, so at least 42 additional units over what your current zoning is. So if you were to create a zoning district in Medfield State Hospital under the compact neighborhoods provision, if it has at least 42 units, and if it allows for at least 4 units per acre for single family or 8 units per acre for multifamily, then it can qualify as a compact neighborhood. You may want to be more ambitious and make more housing that meets your needs, there's another provision for as-of-right zoning where the state, Chapter 40R, which has about double those densities required. And if you enact zoning for a very limited area that allows for double those densities, the state will provide funding, will give the towns incentive funding to offset the cost of absorbing the services from that new development. So either of those are options that you may want to consider in looking at future zoning for the state hospital site. Some other more scattered site, small-scale development alternatives would be inclusionary or incentive zoning in specific areas or town-wide. Inclusionary zoning requires a portion of every large development project to have so many affordable units in it. Incentive zoning kind of does the same thing, but instead of requiring a portion, you reward the developer with some density bonus if they will provide more affordable housing. Or addressing your accessory dwelling units or multifamily conversions in order to make it easier to preserve existing buildings, existing homes, and at the same time create additional housing units, discouraging tear downs to build more housing. Finally, some strategies for addressing your housing cost barriers that are facing your current residents, providing support to first-time home buyers and elderly residents to overcome cost barriers. Update the tax deferral program. Right now, the income limit for seniors to defer their property taxes is at $40,000, which is below income limits for the 80% or the 50% for area median income, depending on the size of the household. So raising it to at least 80% of area median income for seniors would help to stretch the program for to be more affordable to some seniors. And offering first-time home buyer assistance program. Again, this is something that we need to be funded through Affordable Housing Trust to give first-time home buyers a boost so that they can afford to buy homes. I forgot to mention earlier that the cost of a median home in Medfield of about if a median house is $550,000, the income required to buy that as a first-time home buyer is in the order of $120,000. So that's well above the median income for the town, and young home buyers buying a first house are not likely to have the income that's required. The next step that you need to take is to adopt the housing production plan. It is substantially ready, barring correction of typographical errors in the plan. The Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board adopt the housing production plan and submit this to DHCD for approval. DHCD, there's a map of all of the communities that have approved housing production plan. The communities in red have had approved plans. They're good for 5 years and they need to be updated. And the ones in red have expired plans. The ones in green have current housing production plans. And there are a tiny number of communities in yellow. Those are communities that not only have approved housing production plans, but have reached safe harbor. They have housing certification, which is they accomplish by actually creating the requisite number of housing units each year, which is 1% of the housing stock. That's 42 housing units in a single year will offer, no, it's half of 1%, so it's 21 housing units created in a single year will enable you to attain safe harbor from unfriendly 40Bs. And you do that, you attain safe harbor by implementing zoning or creating affordable units. I think that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Roberta, for your information. Just a general question on 40B.
Yes.
And to educate me. I was reading something about 40B, and the way I interpreted the clause was that for a unit actually only counts if it's a rental unit, that if it was a home-owned unit, it wouldn't count to those numbers. Am I interpreting something wrong?
There is an important distinction. Home owner-occupied units count if there is a deed restriction that preserves them for the long term, maybe 20 years, maybe in perpetuity, for households earning less than 80% of area median income. So that when the house is resold, the next homeowner needs to be income qualified and the house has to be priced at a level that they can afford. An
example of that is Allendale. Allendale, the houses there are individually owned, but we get credit for them as affordable housing.
So the ownership housing is credited 1-to-1. For each affordable unit you create, 1 unit is on the state subsidized housing inventory. With rental housing, you get a bonus because the state is trying to encourage development of more rental housing. So 20% of the units need to be affordable to households earning less than 80% of area median income, but you get credit for 100% of those units on the subsidized housing inventory. So if 100 units are built, 20 of them are affordable, 100 units go into the subsidized housing inventory.
So on this presentation, we need 136 units to get to 10%. Only, is it a quarter of those or a fifth of those that would have to be if they were rental?
If they were rental. Suddenly, I can't remember if it's 20% or 25%.
I think it's 25.
Yes, 25%.
And so that we would just need a quarter of the 136.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
Actually be affordable units, the rest could be market rate.
Regarding the single persons coming into Medfield, the big draw in Medfield are the schools. That means family with kids. I can't really see Medfield becoming a big draw for singles. And trying to plan for them, to provide housing for them, sounds like, you're not going to have a market.
You're not only trying to build housing to draw people from outside the community to come in, but you're also trying to build housing for people who live in the community whose needs change over time. And
Yeah, like seniors.
yes,
Yeah.
a development can be age restricted depending on the development and the developer and the interest of the developer.
And one of the things I think that the committee is exploring, and I'm not on the committee, but I'll speak of what I think they're doing, is exploring ways to what they call live-work plans. And essentially this is if you could attract the business or you could attract an industry or whatever, then you would attract the young people who are working there. So you would now have essentially a lure or an enticement for the young people to move into the town to work in that area. The problem, of course, is finding something that would fit the appropriate employment or enticement at the hospital, and that's one of the things that's being investigated. So, Tony, I hope to answer your question about how would you get the young people to come here, is you'd have to create a draw for them.
You need the draw, building housing, a small unit. You're not going to get young people to move into Medfield. I mean, Medfield has unique characteristics, and I think the town is somehow or other failing to realize that we have great schools in the town, and this is what draws people, and it draws families with lots of kids, and they come to Medfield for the schools. After the kids graduate from schools, they leave.
There's a chicken and egg going on. Is it that the town can't attract families? Can't attract single people because only families want to live here? Or is it that there is no place for single people to live in town if they wanted to move here?
I mean, we've got 700 people living alone. That's a substantial number of households out of our 4,000. That's like a fifth.
But a big percentage of those are seniors, aren't they?
Right.
Or-
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
so.
Right.
I think the problem is we're not a Cambridge. We don't have all the activities that young people want. They want the nightlife. They want the entertainment. They want we do have the recreational opportunities, I'd say, in terms of activities for, outdoor activities. We have that, but we don't have the city life that they are looking
Again,
for.
at the State Hospital Planning Committee meeting, they've been talking about anchors for housing. And one of the ones that they talked about was having a cultural center. Apparently Maynard has found that to be very rewarding, that when they ask the people in Maynard, most of them say that the cultural center is the main thing that they're proud of in the town. The other thing that the guy from the Smart Growth Alliance was talking about was at the hospital, the recreational opportunities. I mean, there might be some opportunity there to attract people, younger people who like to kayak or canoe or.
But I think one of the big things, and I think that's where what Bill was saying is true, one of the big factors is the time to commute. The people don't want to spend 3 hours a day commuting. They want to live near where they work. And I think anything that be done to create jobs that will attract
Younger
people.
people want to live in Boston. A lot of them live in South Boston and commute out to Marlboro for their jobs.
Yes, yeah.
Can I just say something about your anchor comment? So I think one anchor for seniors that Medfield has is the senior center on Ice House Road. And I think that the land that is on Ice House Road, and I know Lot 3, the Economic Development Committee has, and Mike, I know you've heard that, it's going to be commercial. However, Lot 3 and the Hinckley property on Ice House Road are right near a vibrant senior center that was opened in 2008. It's a I'm not saying it because I work there, but it's a great place, and I think the seniors around here in this building would tonight would agree that it's vibrant and it offers a lot of supportive services as people age through their lifespan. I mean, we do a lot of work there. We have the Hinckley property, clean land, no contaminants, no asbestos, no, the laundry detergent, that you're dealing with up at State Hospital, clean, ready to be built. And so the Lot 3, same thing. It's land ready to be built to meet the needs of the seniors in town that don't have any place to downsize to, and it could be a local initiative project, or it could be economical housing, not affordable 40B, but it could be more economical with a unique plan proposed to the town of Medfield. I made calls to Norfolk, to River's Edge. 33 families have moved out of Medfield to live over at River's Edge. I called Pin Oaks. 18 families have moved over to, Pin Oaks, so yep. And then 2 families in downtown Norfolk Center and that other right off the main drag. A mass exodus out of Medfield as when their kids are out of school and they downsize. I myself, it was easy for me to downsize at 56 years old and move to Franklin to a condo. My 5 kids are all gone. It was easy for me at 56. But it's not easy for people when they're in their mid-70s and up. We have a woman in Medfield on South Street who was born in Medfield. She's 94 years old. She says, Roberta, my nephews are pushing me to move to Plymouth to be with my sister. She goes, my sister's older than me. What if she dies? Then I'm stuck in Plymouth, and I know no one. I don't know the Council on Aging. I don't know where the library is. I don't know. I won't. How can I live there? So this woman, 4 years ago, said, Roberta, how about if I sell you my house and you build me 1-floor living? And that was when I was on the Housing Authority, and I said, oh, Ruth, I can't do that, But there's an example of someone who would immediately sell her home and move into a single-floor living environment, and she'd live there safely and comfortably for the rest of her life, which could be to 104. Peggy Dewar, who used to be a Medfield resident forever and ever, she's 104. So what I'm saying is that as an anchor, you talk of an anchor, for the Medfield State Hospital, when that's done, the anchor for seniors right now is that senior center, and there's land right there that is ready to be developed. And that's what I was going to say tonight.
I was just going to mention that I met a woman when I had my last office hours at the center who told me that she'd moved to Medfield over to Highland Glen in Westwood, and that she'd move back in a heartbeat if there was a similar place in town.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that we should be creating these types of places for these people to live in town so that they don't all move away. I think we should be investing in our seniors and our older citizens and investing in keeping them in town.
But we had just had a general conversation today at the senior center about housing, and I put up a flyer, let's come in and talk about housing, and that went up on I think Friday, and Monday was a holiday. We had 20 people there talking about housing and what are they going to do?
I think we threw away an ideal opportunity. I think the plan selected negotiated 5 or 6 years ago with the state, which would have been primarily senior housing we would have had to create 79 units of affordable housing, about half of which were seniors, and we would have met our 40B requirements, and we rejected it. I think that was
Where was that?
State Hospital.
Oh, I see, yeah.
I think that was a big mistake, and I think it's something that when we look at the hospital now, we have to look at it in terms of to a certain degree of those needs, the needs for senior housing, and how do we meet our 40B. We had a great plan, and we threw it away, in my opinion.
Mike, that plan really never got officially rejected. It just never got presented to the town. So that,
It was clear that it was never going anywhere.
But with that said, and I'm not familiar with that one, but, so that was then, but we have to think of.
We have to make sure we don't make the same mistake again, I think. And I have a question. You've mentioned that we have to create incentives in our zoning districts, but in the case of the state hospital property, we are the owners. And in terms of zoning, I don't think we have to create incentives in the zoning. We can require, as a condition of the sale of the property, that they develop and include appropriate affordable housing.
Yes, I'm thinking of zoning for the Medfield State Hospital as a different matter than zoning elsewhere in the community. What's appropriate for Medfield State Hospital is as of right zoning, because you want to make it easier for a developer to get that project done and within make it more economically feasible for them to do a development that has the level of affordability at a price point that you want to be available for your seniors, for your residents.
some cities and towns might have inclusionary zoning, like Newton has one where you get, if you meet their 10% affordable housing threshold for your development, you get density bonuses.
Right. All I'm saying is in terms of the hospital, we don't need to, for private land, that we want to encourage developers to do that. You do need an incentive, but where the town owns the property, the town can require it
Right.
as a condition of sale.
Right, I think that's an issue for the zoning for the rest of the town.
Yeah.
We don't have that type of inclusionary zoning now, so that might be
Right.
one thing to look at. The other two things that I wrote down that I thought we should look at is the listing, or increasing the limit on the tax deferral program from the 40,000 to 80,000. For the, and that's for seniors, isn't it?
Yes. Tax deferral, property tax deferral for seniors right now is at 40,000.
Can't go to 80, you say? And
I don't know what the limits are ultimately. I had some examples in the draft plan, I think of up to 75,000, but that may have been, I'm not sure where I got the 75,000, if that was, if that's the limit of how far you are allowed to take it, or if it is pegged to the 80%.
Yeah, well, so that's one thing that we should be
median
looking
income.
at, it struck me. The other thing I thought that we should be looking at is clearly the Community Preservation Act. We voted it down once already, but I think that it would make sense to take a look at that and maybe give the town an opportunity to adopt that.
Yes, the Community Preservation Act is really a tool that is completely applicable to the task you have at hand of the Medfield State Hospital.
And it's all about the matching money.
Yes.
In my mind, if you're gonna be doing any of those three, if you're gonna be doing those three categories, which we are, that we're just leaving state money on the table by not
Yes.
adopting community preservation, but, the other thing that I had a question about was the compact neighborhoods. I'm just not familiar with that. Is that like the 40B, basically?
Well, a compact neighborhood is as of right zoning, that you create a district that has zoning at these densities with this level of affordability, and the state will reward communities for doing that by recognizing your commitment to building affordable housing and in the place where you've designated to build it. So when a developer who wants to propose a comprehensive permit asks for a letter of eligibility from DHCD, They will look at the community's commitment expressed in its zoning bylaw to build affordable housing where you want it, of the kind that you want, and if that 40B project does not align with your goals,
Oh, so if they're not looking to build their 40B in an area that we said is a compact neighborhood,
yes,
then
then
the state will look at
the-
whether or not.
the state
okay.
will consider your compact the existence of your compact neighborhood in its
Okay,
letter
so
of
we say where we
eligibility.
want the 40Bs basically to go.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I'd just be interested, we got planning board members here, any feedback from planning board on this plan at all?
Not yet. The first we heard about it was a week ago. So it's something we'll talk about at an upcoming session, but we have had no input so far.
Okay.
Yeah, the assessors talked about this today, and we're going to do the same thing as the planning board. We're going to be looking at this particular one project and get back to you on that, too.
Great.
There are some hookers there, especially on the financing, on the taxes, because you've got the reverse mortgages come into play here, and who becomes the lien holder. And that's a very important thing to the town, because we could end up eating a lot of tax money ourselves. So we're looking at that to see how that would be set up on it. So that's it. all right.
Isn't your lien for taxes,
Is what?
your lien for taxes is in front of the reverse mortgages, aren't they?
Well, that's our question. Uncle Sam comes first. So you could have a lien from Uncle Sam, the state would second, and we would come third probably. But the lien holder, that's what we're worried about there. That would be whoever the bank is, where they come in, and where the town would come in from there, on the reverse.
Anybody else? Thank you very much then.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And does that take care of our discussion of the senior housing warrant article, or is that something different? We had something said the planning board and council on aging discussed proposed 2015 warrant article for senior housing study.
Let's talk about, a study for the need for senior housing, but I think that's been just obvious, and even before listening to Roberta's presentation, it's been glaring that, there's a need for senior housing, so I don't think there's a need an article for that. But I think what, and I speak for the seniors maybe, is what we do need is, kind of a plan, like where do we go? What are we gonna do? Separate from Medfield State Hospital because of what we have, right near us on Ice House Road.
Right now, Lot 7 is town-owned, and it's zoned for RH, 40,000 square foot, for large homes, large lots.
You're talking about the
And for
Hinckley property?
the Hinckley property.
Hinckley property, okay.
So I think we need an action by the Board of Selectmen, or a vote to say, look, we want to see senior housing on Lot 7. What do we need to do to get the zoning changed? It's not going to happen overnight, I realize that, but you need to have some kind of a plan, to have it done by the summer, to have the paperwork in progress so that we could advertise and maybe get some developers interested in putting in senior housing.
Well, I think that what was just described in terms of the compact neighborhoods might be appropriate for something like this, because you're talking about 9 or 10 acres, and that would
Yeah,
give you
9.7.
a large enough area to put in that number of units.
But the question was, do we need to get something on the warrant article, have the town meeting vote on something to approve?
You do, but I don't think you can rush it, and, the planning board has to have hearings on any zoning change in it, and they have to decide if, what areas are appropriate for this, so I think it does take time.
But can I get a sense of the feeling of the Board of Selectmen? Is this something that you see happening, or it's not going to happen like Lot 3 is not going to happen for housing?
Well, I can just speak for myself, but I say, I think we have to pursue what you're saying, rather than just talk about it. I think we almost need some kind of a committee, and maybe that'd be under the planning board. I don't want to step on planning board toes, but maybe that's under the planning board, but you need someone that's actually going to now begin to get work on this, make a presentation, go to the planning board, see what is going to be needed, what town meeting, rather than just talk about this. I think we need to have some kind of a concrete board. I think there's interest. Roberta just mentioned in the spur of a moment, she had 20 people. So I think there's interest in the town. I think you almost have to get some kind of committee to actually action to do something, rather than just we keep talking about
That
it.
has,
and
that
then-
has seniors on the committee.
Absolutely. So I think that would be my recommendation for a first step. I'd be fully supportive of that.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
can't talk about either Lot 3 or Hinckley because it's next to
I
my
know.
home. But in general, the idea of planning for more senior housing in town, I think is absolutely the way to go. So the one thing that I would mention with regard to Hinckley and Lot 3, although, is that we have tasked the Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee to do master planning for those two parcels.
Yeah, to echo Pete's comments, we've just got a bunch of RFQs in from, that the committee is gonna start to vet from 9 firms that have proposals for a master plan for the Medfield State Hospital and all the adjoining parcels. And they've been asked also to incorporate their thoughts on Ice House Road, the Hinckley property, McCarthy Fields, the Sledding Hill, everything. So I would like to at least let the committee that we've tasked with that, give them a chance to see what these proposals look like, and see what
That's
these
going to be
plans.
in next summer.
Well, yeah, and because these plans are gonna get going. It just feels like we're, everyone's ready to, let's get 5 different studies going at the same time to talk about the same thing. No, really, you know what I mean? Let's go hire another consultant. We're gonna look at the senior thing, we're gonna do the state hospital, we're gonna do a master plan for the town, we're gonna housing production plan, we're gonna have like 5 plans going at the same time. We're gonna have 5 different consultants that are gonna be doing stuff, and we're all overwhelmed with paperwork and plans. I would rather us just take a step back, let the Medfield State Hospital Committee do their work first, and then we can go from there. As opposed, all of a sudden, we got a fire here. You know, the town's been trying to sell these properties for 20 years, and all of a sudden, within 6 months, we've got to solve all these problems and have it all done by this summer, you know? And for some reason, everyone's, burning up with a tremendous amount of haste here, and haste is gonna make waste.
Yeah, as a midpoint between that, Mark, when Tony and Sarah and myself met to discuss this, there appears to be a lot of communities that have some sort of zoning or action plan or something. At least if we took some time now and looked at what's out there, what other communities are doing, so that when we come around, when we get a master plan or decide what we're going to do and what's appropriate, we have something to go forward with, because it doesn't need a consultant. You could appoint a committee and they can gather data from other towns, and it would at least get something ready to deal with when we do have the master
I
plan.
would look to our 2 planners that are here in the room, but it seems to me that housing for seniors would be a big part of a townwide master plan. And if we, no? Okay. I thought we would just take that piece and move it right into our town master plan, that we're gonna use this land next to Tilden for this housing and.
There are action items within the housing production plan which could transition into a chapter of a townwide master plan. So that's the little nuance there.
But how about with the planning for the housing for the seniors in town? That can't just be moved into a.
Right, so, not necessarily, there are action items that come out. So you have your implementation plan is, your meat of your master plan, and that's 9 different chapters, equal weight of each chapter. And then implementing the master plan is the most important part of having a master plan. We spoke last week with Tony, and Richard was there, Mark Sorrell was there, and we talked about what we can do. And from a planning and zoning perspective, if we're talking about doing something, it's understanding the framework in which we do it. So I gathered some sample zoning from Medway and Franklin too, from Franklin actually, so that we can kind of wrap our heads around what zoning can do in this context. So, if it's appointing a committee, it's a committee that's going to need to understand not only the problem, but also how to analyze the proper solutions.
How would that mesh with then this planning that's going on for the hospital? Do you see this as something that should wait until after the hospital planning takes
do
place,
I-
or can we kind of mesh the two together somehow?
I do see it as a policy decision. That's complex because you hit, like, as Mark stated, there's a lot of urgent needs. But I think that when we break down the issue with the data and as well as the anecdotal evidence, it tells a clearer picture. So being able to collect the data, put it through public processes, you're going to get a better product in the end. So, if you're asking what's got to come first, it's a comprehensive understanding of what you want to do. The state hospital's been on the radar for so long that, we feel like it's needs to be addressed. We need to move forward with it. And a townwide master plan doesn't have to come first, okay? We have a lot of information that feeds into the townwide master plan. I see a lot of these issues as integrated, and the state hospital planning process is going to work to bring a lot of different people together. Well, as many people within the spectrum that we have here in Medfield.
So Sarah, are you saying that this, any sort of planning then for the senior housing should wait at this point? Is that your opinion?
I can't answer that necessarily right now. You've asked the master planning committee to do something that includes the parcels of land that they would like to act on quickly. And I think that we need to take a look at why those parcels of land were included in the request for the state hospital, and if it matches what the goal of creating housing sooner on Ice House Road, if it matches, if it aligns.
Those wouldn't be the only parcels that I would think that a senior, a committee looking at housing for seniors would look at. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is the land next to Tilden.
But that's state-owned land.
But
a different.
we can have some impact on that, I would assume. I would assume that we can try to be the catalyst to get it moving. I mean, it's probably a money issue to,
I think it may be a type of housing issue too. The state wants family housing. I think the town, when we looked at this before, they wanted family housing.
how many, I can't imagine, when we're talking about these single people households, I'm thinking that's Tilden Village and places like that. I mean, I can't, are we gonna?
One of the things that, I'm almost through reading all of the proposals. I got one less to go. It's like 900 pages altogether. I got one to go.
There's only about 6 pages in each one that are important, although,
Well,
is what I decided.
well, that's certainly your choice. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. But one of the tasks that these people are going to do, whoever gets chosen, is they're going to meet with the appropriate departments in town. They're going to look at what does the town want. They're going to look at what plans does the town already have in place to do things. One of the things that they would probably look at would be the production plan. And in fact, if that production plan were ready, you're saving yourself some consultant work, and you're getting the product out of them quicker.
Yeah.
Now, further to what the committee has asked for, if you were to read the statement of work that's in the master plan for the state hospital, there are several items in there that will fit into a master plan. So, I mean, I would recommend that the Board of Selectmen and Town Administration consider that at some point you could start funneling the elements that are generated within the strategic plan for the hospital into the start of the master planning process. So you don't have to be doing everything at once, but you could at some point start a parallel effort.
Sure.
And I think that would work out well. And in fact, you would be saving yourself costs and time in the town-wide master plan, because you would have already paid for and generated much of the data that would be needed in that plan as you're doing the strategic plan for the hospital. So that would be my recommendation. So I would say you go ahead with your production plan, run it through the appropriate town boards and everything else, and when the team, whoever you pick to do the strategic plan for the hospital comes in, what they will look at was the thoughts of the town or the work that the town had done to establish other potential areas for housing. So they will use that as part of their source data, so it becomes a charrette item for them, if you think of it. So it wouldn't be wasted time, and it would not be in conflict with what the state hospital group is doing.
Well, no, all I'm just saying is the town has limited resources, and someone seems to feel we get another committee going and boom, just like that. You know, Sarah and Christine, they've got all kinds of extra time so they can coordinate with this good committee studying this and this. We have finite resources. We're a tiny little town. We rely on volunteers to try to get everything done here. We finally got momentum going with the state hospital. We're trying to stay focused and get this moving forward. The committee is very energized and they want to keep going. And then we're gonna, and I'm worried, I'd like to get that moving first and get that started with a consultant, and then we can see how we can fit in some of these other studies and tie it all together, as opposed to us starting 4 different studies at the same time, and somehow Sarah and Christine and Mike is supposed to somehow coordinate all these things, and meanwhile, we've got, 100-page reports that the selectmen are supposed to try to wade through and figure out what the heck we're doing. I'd like to get one thing done at a time, so we can kind of feel we've accomplished something, because I'm just afraid if we start too many things at the same time, we're just not getting anything done. And we're gonna be sitting here 3 or 4 years later, the town's gonna have been spending $200,000-300,000 a year in carrying costs for the state hospital, because we're bogged down with, we've got all these studies, and they're not coordinated. We get a senior housing study that says we should do this, the state hospital says we should do this, the housing production plans, I'm very concerned we're gonna just study ourselves to death, and whatever, so. We can try to do it if you want, but it's gonna cost the town a lot of money, and we're not gonna get anything done. I'm positive of that. I really am.
Yeah, Mark, as a member of both the planning board and the Medfield State Hospital Committee, I second what you said fully.
Yeah, we just, one thing at a time. I don't know.
But I think the only thing I would add, I think the seniors have waited and waited and waited for an awful long time, and I think the seniors need to be very vocal and continue to be vocal so they're not just cast aside, and it's another 10 years later, and we're still looking at evacuation of Medfield, and we're losing our seniors, and we're losing those that want to downside out of Medfield. We're losing an important part of our population. So my advice to seniors is to be very vocal with the boards, make sure they just are not thinking you're going away.
Oh, I agree. Definitely.
Any other comments? Thank you very much on that then, and now we're ready for our 8:30 appointment, which is Gus Murby, Medfield's representative of the Town Sharing Committee, who I didn't see that Gus is here.
No, yeah, Gus is
Roberta,
gone.
yes.
Gus is gone to.
I'm on vacation, and I forgot to get a request for the online permit for tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
Although, do I hear a motion
For
for
7.
Roberta's permit?
I make a motion for a beer and wine license permit for tomorrow at the senior center.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yep. Under action items, there's, says that I wanted to discuss a waiver of transfer station sticker fees for
Getting the
seniors.
zoning
And Chris asked that this go to the Solid Waste Committee.
Mark said
It was Roy
zoning change.
McKetney who suggested this to me, and it struck me as a nice way to maybe,
Yeah.
you're not
that's
giving a
why,
huge
but
amount of tax relief to a senior, but you're giving them a little something, so that it's gonna, I guess it's gonna go to the Solid Waste Study Committee, and then,
if you're doing that, what they call
under licenses and permits, Council on Aging requests a one-day,
I
that's what we
think
just
you might
voted.
get away with it.
No.
Oh,
It's a
different one.
It's a
Thank you.
That's why I think you gotta look.
Thanks for
and find
keeping me
out.
straight, Evelyn.
Hi, I'm Jeff Marsden, and you're watching Medfield.tv.